you're being responsible on doing it. So if a credit company offers you an increase on your credit limit, just accept it and just be responsible on using it. So meaning to say you're gonna have more room to use on your credit limit. This this uh this component goes the same way on lines of credit because these are revolving accounts. So the third component is the length of credit history. This is the component that shows how good how long you have been managing your credits. So the longer you have your credit history, the better your score on this component. The fourth one is the types of credit trades, which compose 10% of the component. So credit trades is also important. This is also called the mix of credits. So the many types of credits that you have on your credit score or on your credit component means to say you can be responsible on handling different types of credits on your credit history. And the last one is the new credit inquiries. So the new credit inquiries, this is the this is the part where credit company sees that if you have been doing a lot of inquiries or applying for a credit. So means to say every time you apply for a credit or a credit card or a loan, a hard hit is being noted on your credit history. So for a temporary on a short period of time, it will affect your credit score negatively. So avoid doing credit inquiries if you don't need to. Okay? So all of this is 100% of your component. So then let's go on the types of credit trades. Typically, a lender wants to see if you're new to Canada to establish at least two credit trades for at least 2 years. So what are those credit trades? So number one is the revolving account, which is like which are the credit cards and the lines of credit. So why they are revolving? Because let's just say you have a $10,000 credit limit on a credit card. You use what 1,000 out of it, and then there were gonna be remaining 9,000 remaining credit. But if you paid your $1,000 usage, then it goes back to 10,000 again, which is the same thing with lines of credits. The second one is the installment. So installment is normally these are loans. So what does it means? So loans is like you loan a $10,000. Let's just say you made a $10,000 loan to purchase a car. So then you will have a specific amount of payment every month until the $10,000 loan becomes zero. Then the third one is the one time. So one-time trade, this is normally the phone subscription. So it will appear on your credit history as O, which means to say one time. This is normally the code that the phone company use. So means to say um phone companies reports your credit history as well in a credit bureau. So meaning if you have a phone subscription, you should also be paying your bills on time because they report this. And the last one is M, which is mortgage. So once you have already have a mortgage and you see your credit history, an M will gonna show there if you have already a mortgage. But as a new to Canada, normally you have to get at least the revolving. This is the easiest one to get, getting a credit card. And you might want at least to have a small personal loan, like a 5,000 loan or $2,000 loan, just to have just to reflect on your credit history that and be responsible on paying this on time. So this will gonna give you a good boost on your credit history. So to qualify for a mortgage, you typically need a credit score of at least 680 or higher. Okay. The third is build funds for a down payment and closing costs. So the best and practical source of down payment is your own money. You must show that your funds are already available in your account for at least 90 days or more, because this shows that the bank that you have been financially responsible and saved up rather than relying on a last minute help or debt. Okay. Of course, like I said, if you have the money already, if you have your own savings as a down payment, that will reflect that you have been responsibly saving up to own a property. Okay? The minimum requirement for Canada is 5% of the purchase price for the first half million. Anything in excess of half million, if you're buying a 600,000 home, so that's gonna be over 500,000. The remaining 100,000 of 600,000 home will be 10%, up to a million. So anything 600,000 to a million, 600,000 to a million will be 10%. But the first 500,000 will be 5%. But if you're buying only $500,000 home or lower, in this example, the minimum down payment is 5% of the purchase price. So in this example, a $450,000 home, so 5% of that is 22,500. And then you also need to prepare for the closing costs. So this is estimated at 1.5% of the purchase price of the property. So in this case, 1.5% of $450,000 home is 6,750, which is so if you were gonna total the down payment and the closing cost will be 29,250. Okay? So what are the closing costs are for? This will gonna be used for the legal fees, including the payment for the lawyer for registering the title of the property that you are buying and other legal costs related to buying that property. Okay. Third one, obtain a permanent residency. If you're not yet a permanent resident of Canada, you might as well wait for a bit before buying a house, unless what? So, because having a permanent residency assures banks and mortgage lenders that you intend to remain in Canada. Because if you are not a permanent resident in Canada yet, lenders typically requires a minimum down payment of 35%. So please take note of that. I know there's a lot of I got a lot of inquiries before that we are not yet permanent resident, but we want to buy a property. However, bank normally requires 35% of down payment of your if you're not yet a permanent resident. Okay. Number five, consult with an expert in the field. Okay, what does it mean? Work with a licensed mortgage professionals and get advice from them. I know you're probably gonna have a friend or a very close friend or a relative that have bought their property a year ago, 2 months ago, or probably 5 years ago. I know they can give good advice to you. But compared to a professional who have been doing this as as their profession, as their career, they can give you more professional advice, and because market rules are changing, so they most likely professionals are always up to date on the current rules with regards to buying a property, with regards to mortgage, with regards to real estate. Okay. So I know I'm not saying advice from your relative, from your friend are not good, but always seek the advice of a professional when you are about to buy your property in Canada. So who are these professionals? It can be your mortgage broker, it can be a mortgage associate, it can be a financial advisor. So like Tosin. So Tosin is a financial advisor, of course, from Great Way. Okay. So number six, protect your asset, protect your family. Get insured before getting a mortgage. What do I mean by it? There are three things you can say when insuring yourself before having a mortgage. I'm talking about getting a life insurance. Protect your family. So probably you will gonna say, I have life insurance at from my work. That's good. But the moment you quit from that work, that insurance goes away as well. Plus, you miss the day, you miss the years that probably you are healthier when when you enter that company after 3 years, then you move away from that company, you use that insurance. So this is what I mean. Three things you can say when insuring yourself before having a mortgage. You secure your future insurability while eligible. Because you don't know, we are not sure if we can get sick in the next year, in the next month. But the moment we get sick, there's a probability that we might not be able to get an insurance, or probably we can get a rated insurance. Second, you lock in lower insurance costs while you are younger. The younger you are, the lower the cost of your insurance. And the same goes if you're getting a mortgage insurance. Because personal life insurance is a smarter alternative to mortgage insurance. So if you're buying your property later on, the mortgage agent, the bank will still gonna offer you a creditor insurance, which is a life insurance, but it's still better to have the mortgage insurance. So you can decline that creditor insurance if you have your personal life insurance. Okay? So additional mortgage tip. Lenders typically use gross income multiplier of 4 to 4.5 times the borrower's annual income to estimate the maximum mortgage that they might qualify for. Example, if a borrower's annual income is 80,000, estimated buying power would be 320,000 to 360,000. So, that is a simple calculation, okay? However, borrowers' buying power decreases by approximately 15,000 to 20,000 for every $100 in monthly debts. Okay, in monthly debt payments. So example, if a borrower has a car payment of $300 per month, it brings down his buying power by 45,000 to $60,000. So based on our example above, the buying power will go down to 275,000 to 300,000. So that's a big cut on your buying power. I will say my advice to this, before buying a car from a dealership that will gonna pay monthly on a monthly basis, plan to get a house first. Plan for that, because the moment you have a large loan that you have to pay at least this kind of amount, it will bring down your buying power significantly. Okay, especially the real estate in Saskatchewan and even in around Canada is getting high already. So the properties are going on a high side already. Okay. So quick estimates. These are the monthly debt payment and these are the buying power loss. Okay. Mortgage buying power loss. If you're paying $100 of monthly bill, it's taking away at least $15,000 on your buying power. And if you're paying $1,000 debt payment, for example, if you purchase a brand new car and then you're paying $1,000 on a monthly basis, that's taking away at least 150,000 on your buying from your buying power. Okay. So disclaimer, this is only approximation. Actual numbers may vary based on interest rates and lender policies. It's still best to consult with your trusted Great Way mortgage expert to know your exact numbers. Okay. So that's all about our my tip. So this is my team, the Great Way Mortgage team. So this is it's the same company, it's the sister company of Great Way Financial. So where Tosin and I are also connected. So this is my team. If you want to take a picture, these are the people that can help you in getting your mortgage. So these are the services that we offer. Residential, we only do residential mortgages across Canada, including Quebec. So we do first-time home buying, new to Canada, refinancing and HELOC. HELOC is home equity line of credit, renewal, switch or transfer, secondary property, rental property, self-employed income, business income, bruise credit, bad credit, and we can also do construction mortgage. So, okay. So if you're not yet following my page, so this is my page, Gina and Francis Independent Insurance Broker. My wife is also a life insurance agent, so I'm a mortgage broker. And this is our mortgage Facebook page. If you would like to know to get more mortgage tip, you can follow our page. Okay. So may this be your guide toward becoming a homeowner in Canada. Thank you very much. If you have question, the table is open. That ends my presentation.
I want to thank Mr. Francis, Clear Francis, for this short presentation. I was hopeful that it won't be too long because I know that some of us might have questions or like to um, air out maybe by text on the chat or maybe on muting yourself if you have questions as regards starting is this. But before then, I would want to send out some polls, at least that will give us a head start on what are really our concerns are. So let me see if you can see what's on the polls on the chat. I'm going to push it out very soon. Are you seeing the polls, everyone? The questions in the chat, or rather, the polls I pushed out recently.
I can see your chats.
That is on. Do you see anything on the polls I pushed out?
No, I don't. But I have a question. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Sure.
While I try to resolve that.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation, Francis. And my question is on buying a bank-owned or foreclosure. What do you advise? What's your advice on that? And how, if one has to do that or wants to do that, how does one go about it? Because I'm pretty sure that the dynamics might be different from a regular buyer. Do you have
It
any advice? Yeah.
it can be a little different from a regular purchase, but normally a foreclosure property will be listed by a bank through a real estate agent. So probably it can be we have dealt with a foreclosure property several times already. It's just almost the same process.
Okay, is
That,
it safe to do that or
well, it will
not
gonna have
advisable?
so if you're buying, I will say this is more on an issue with an issue with I will not say an issue. It will be more on a work with in terms of the property, a work with a real estate agent. If you're buying a foreclosure property, it's better to have your real estate agent for the for them to check the property. You will need, I will say you will need an inspection, number one, if that's a foreclosure property. Was normally a foreclosure property, when the previous owners left that property, there can be a lot of damage on the property.
Have you brought out your clothes to be washed? Yeah, I have.
Okay. So if you're gonna be wanting to buy a foreclosure property, make sure you will have you will have the house to be inspected. And the rest will be with regards to the mortgage approval. Probably what lenders wants to know is the property is in good condition. So that's
Okay.
the only thing that the
Okay.
lender wants to
And
know.
the previous owner will not have claim over the property anymore.
Yes, and it will be checked through title insurance. So
Okay.
the lawyer will have to work on it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
You are
I also have a
for
question.
okay.
Thank you, Francis, for this tips. We're grateful. So I have a question. I saw that you said houses below 500 is for 5%. So does this still count towards a second home after getting your first home for 5%? Can you still get a second home, which is still under the range of the 500 for 5%?
Yes, probably you're talking about second home versus a second property. So when you say second home means to say it will be so that the person will gonna be living on the second home is a relative or probably yeah, a close relative, so that can be classified as second home. If it's a
Okay,
second home,
what I mean
then
is after getting your first property, maybe you
okay,
want to rent that out and move into another property. So does the 5% still hold for this when you're getting the second property, or it's just for a first home buyer and it's just 5% for the first home buyer, or does the 5% count for every other house you buy that is under the 500,000 range?
okay, if it's a second home, because if you intend to buy the second property as a rental property, then it will be tagged by the lender as 20% down payment because you are declaring it. You are we have to disclose it as a rental property. But if you're buying the second property as a second home for a relative, can be your daughter, probably let's just say you are from Saskatchewan, and then you have a daughter or a son that is gonna be studying in Alberta and you want to buy a property there, then that can still be a 5% down payment because it's a second home. But if it's a rental property, so once we declare it as a rental property to the lender will trigger or will ask for a 20% down payment.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. But we can discuss it about it to you more if you want to learn more about it. So yeah. So
Okay,
what
Thank you.
I have a follow-up on her question. What if you want to buy your first home, maybe a 3 bedroom or 4 bedroom, and you plan to rent out the basement, for instance? Is
okay.
that going to increase the percentage since they know that the basement, which is your home, will be
Mm-hmm.
rented out?
Okay. So that's a good question, Buyawa. So here's the thing. If you want to rent out the basement of the property that you are buying, the basement should be a legal suite before you can declare it as a basement rental property. Okay, or a mortgage helper, that what we call it. So but if it's not a legal basement suite, we cannot use it as an additional mortgage qualification or whatever. We cannot use the income from the basement as an additional income qualification for mortgage application. It has to be a legal suite. But if it's a legal suite, then the lender can accept, most lender will accept 50% of the rental projection for the rental suite.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So that means you're going to still maintain the 5%, right?
Yes,
Okay.
still 5% because that's gonna be owner occupied plus rental.
Okay, we have I don't know if you have more questions, but keep it coming, and because we still have about more than 10 minutes. Well, going on the chat, I see Edison has put something here saying, when your fiance is not a PR and not legally married, how does that affect buying a home together? So
Okay.
one
So
of the
yeah,
couple
I
is not
see it.
PR.
So to answer that, so this is the question: when your fiance is not a PR and not legally married, how does that affect your buying a home together? Yeah, legally married is not a problem because whatever is your status, you can be common law that's here. Even friends can co-sign with each other, but the PR will gonna be more of an issue. So that can be more of a concern with the lender because again, if you're not yet a PR in Canada, what is their guarantee that you will gonna stay here? But if your PR is already on process, you're just waiting for the approval of it, then most there are programs that we can go into to process a mortgage application. But most likely with the that's only be the concern, the PR status. Because you can always co-sign with a friend, with a relative, or with a partner, even if you're not legally married yet. Does that answer the question?
Edison, does that answer your question? I hope it's still there. I hope it does. So from my end, I don't know if anybody still has any questions. So I wanted to ask as regards having to do the down payment. I know many people, okay, Edison said yes. Thanks so much. I know some people are always concerned about having to know how much insurance they have to buy. Oh, we have to get mortgage default insurance. They get a bit confused about the insurance and they mix it up with property insurance and the life insurance. But can you make some clarity about regards all the insurance that is required, that is compulsory, and the one that is not made compulsory that people should actually have and that is have it in mind that they should know that these are the three things or the two things or one or whichever when before they can as well say, okay, yes, they are well protected with their assets.
Okay. So if we're talking about insurance in when you're buying a home, so number one, the lender will need you to insure the property that you are buying. So you need home insurance or fire insurance. Because in case a fire damages your property, then they have the insurance to rebuild the property for you. So lender will not approve your insurance, I mean your mortgage application until you have fire or insurance set. Second insurance that you need to establish, this is not mandatory, but it's a must. That's why the lender is also offering this when you're closing a mortgage, which is a mortgage insurance. This is a life insurance. The first one is a non-life insurance because it protects the property. The second one is a life insurance because it protects the borrower. So life insurance, if you have a personal life insurance, which is like I said, it's better to prepare it even if you're gonna be buying a house 2 years from now or 3 years from now, based on the assessment, based on your pre-qualification, or probably 6 months from now after you have pre-qualified for. But better to get a personal life insurance because it's still better and smarter choice than getting a mortgage insurance or a creditor insurance. You need that to protect the income in case the borrower pass away and then the family will be left behind. It can be your wife or it can be the husband. So there's gonna be a money that you can use to pay off the mortgage. And the beneficiary of a personal life insurance is your family, not the bank. Mortgage insurance, it's a life insurance, but the beneficiary of that is the bank. Means to say, whatever is the mortgage balance left, it will be paid off. However, there's no decision for you. You cannot decide for it because it's all the money goes to the bank and it's diminishing. So most mortgage insurance, the value decreases. But I mean, whatever is the mortgage balance left there, that's the only amount that will be paid to the lender. But if you have your personal life insurance, you can decide whether to use it to pay off the remaining mortgage. But you can also decide to pay off the monthly payment, whatever the mortgage is. You can use it for the education of your family on however you want to use it. It's more flexible for you because the beneficiary is the person. Okay. Another insurance that is being required there, which is settled on the closing, is the title insurance. Excuse me. Title insurance is to protect you if there are other liens on the property. So that's why this is being set up and taken care of by the lawyer. So that's why you always need a real estate lawyer in closing your mortgage deal. So those are the three important insurance that you will be that you will encounter in buying your property. Okay. But if you're buying a condo, let's just say if buying a condo property, you will need a condo insurance. So what does condo insurance protect? The belongings, your belongings outside, inside the condo. The building is already insured through the the condo corporation. So that's gonna be part of your condo fees. If you're living in a condo, if you're buying a condo property, so the building is already taken care of. But however, in case the building went on fire or got damaged by a fire, and then your belongings inside also get damaged, it's not part. It's not the responsibility of the condo corporation. So that's why there's a condo insurance. Okay. So just so you know. Also, as an additional information on that, if you're currently living in an apartment or even in a house, if you're just renting right now, better to get that insurance as well. So, or apartment insurance, because if an apartment or a rental property burns down, the owner doesn't have the responsibility to pay all your belongings inside. So that's why you have to insure as well. So you can get that from from the insurer that where you get your car insurance as well. So you can ask from it. You can ask from them about it as well.
Oh, thank you, Francis. So I wanted to also ask, as regards still on this having to do a down payment. For some people would say that they would like prefer to have to do, because you said something about title insurance. Does also relates to the mortgage default insurance if one does less
Oh
than
yeah,
5%. Okay.
sorry about that. So I forgot to mention the mortgage default insurance.
Is it
If
different from
you're,
title insurance?
it's not. It's different from title insurance.
So there are
Yeah.
four insurance, one's gonna
So for insurance, so fifth is the condo insurance. So another insurance that you need to pay. We need to pay if we're paying 5%. If we're putting 5% down payment, we have the mortgage default insurance, also called CMHC insurance. Okay, the CMHC insurance, which is it protects as well the lender. So if you default in your payment, means to say you are not able to pay your mortgage. Mortgage default insurance pays the lender. So they are the ones who are gonna be paying the lender in case you cannot pay your mortgage. But of course, if you cannot pay your mortgage, it can lead to foreclosure. So, but what happens, even if that goes to foreclosure, the default insurer, the CMHC needs to pay your lender. So whatever is the amount that they need to get, they have to get paid. So yeah, so if you put down less than 20% down payment, we are obligated to have the mortgage default insurance. And if your down payment is 5%, so after the 5% down payment on the purchase price, whatever is the remaining mortgage balance, 4% of that will be the premium on mortgage default insurance. I can send you share the link to Tosin about my my video about it. So if you want reference.
Okay. So we appreciate that. Edison is also asking, I think Boywa has another question. I still have another question though. Edison says on the chat, how much payment default can lead to foreclosure?
So the question is how much payment default can lead to foreclosure. So normally, if you default on the first time let's just say you defaulted for the first time, the bank will gonna contact you. In order to prevent this, if you defaulted for 2-3 times, of course the bank will gonna get alarmed. What's going on? But before that happened, if you really cannot pay your mortgage, talk to your bank. Make an arrangement. You don't want uh having the bank getting in touch with you before you getting in touch with them. If you think that you cannot pay it right now, talk to the bank, make some arrangement. I cannot pay the whole mortgage right now. Probably I can only pay the interest for now. So it's up to the bank if they will accept it or not until you don't get to the point that the bank will go to foreclosure or it will go to the insurer. Because the insurer is intended to protect the bank. So if it goes to foreclosure, the insurer is obliged to pay off whatever is the damage to the bank, and insurer can go after the borrower after with regards to that.
Okay, Boywa, do you have a question?
Yes, I have two questions actually.
Okay.
The first one is you mentioned one can have personal life insurance and mortgage insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So if something happens, peradventure there's, anything happens, who takes over the mortgage? Is it the mortgage insurance or the personal life insurance? That was confusing.
That's a good question. Technically, you can have both. Even if there's a mortgage insurance, you can still have personal life insurance if you have the budget to pay for both, right? So in case you have a mortgage insurance, if you pass away as one of the borrowers, then the mortgage insurance will pay the proceeds to the lender because the beneficiary of the mortgage insurance is the lender. So whatever is the remaining mortgage amount, then they will pay it off. But
Okay.
if you have a personal life insurance, whoever is your beneficiary name on that life insurance, then it will go to your beneficiaries.
Okay, so the mortgage will be paid by the mortgage insurance, then the personal life insurance will take care of other things and
Will
not
will
the
pay
mortgage.
will go to your beneficiaries, and it's up to your beneficiary to use that insurance proceeds.
Okay. Okay, the second question is still on foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading about power of sale and foreclosure. What's the difference? Like the bank doesn't actually own the house, the previous owner still owns the house, and I don't know if it's power of sale or something, but there's a case where the bank tries to sell the previous owner's property, but
Mm-hmm.
the previous owner still has title to the house.
Okay. Probably the best thing I can give on that is the real estate lawyer should, if I'm gonna be the buyer of that foreclosure property, if there's a problem like that, I will move away from it.
Okay.
That's the number one thing I'm gonna do. But if I really want that property, I will gonna get a real estate lawyer to arrange that and check the title of the property, and what can be the possible way we can get this thing settled. But as far as if the property is insured through CMHC when it got foreclosed, then CMHC should have paid the lender
Okay.
everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
No questions. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I don't know if there's any other question, but I have one other question still related to the down payment. So for many people always say they want to do a down payment of 20% so they don't have to um pay for that CHMC, that's mortgage default insurance.
Yes.
What's the risk for those who do that above 20% and if they default, what is the pros and what is the cons for having to do above 20% down payment? Because that is majorly many people's focus. Let me have to pay more and don't have to pay for mortgage default insurance. And if they default, what's going to
Okay.
be the risk?
So these are the two things. These are the things that okay. If you pay, if you put 5% down payment, then there will gonna be default insurance. So there will gonna be additional layer protection for the bank in case you cannot pay your mortgage. So but what if you put down 20% down payment? So what will gonna be the bank's protection? So ironically, if you put more down payment, so anything 20% and higher can will gonna make the interest rate higher. Higher by point 1, point to 0.2% versus the interest rate of a 5% down payment or anything that is lower than 20%. Because there will why the interest rate becomes higher when even if you put down big down payment, 20% or more. Because there's no additional layer of protection for the bank. There's no one will gonna secure them in case you default on your mortgage. So that's gonna be the difference. You will save the insurance premium for not paying the default insurance premium if you put 20% down payment. However, your interest rate will gonna get a little bit higher. So the advantage of putting more down payment, your mortgage becomes lower by few hundreds versus putting 5% down payment. So does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. And I want to say a big thank you to all the attendees today and our colleagues. I want to recognize my senior colleague here, Matthew Shubamawa. He's also an insurance broker, life insurance broker. Tessie Agbato is here. Patrick Aideyafen is here. At least I recognize them as independent insurance brokers too. Francis, being our presenter today, has a dual license. Is a mortgage license. Is registered licensed mortgage broker, and he covers how many provinces do you cover? Besides the fact that you reside in Saskatchewan, Francis.
Um, I
Your
you
team.
mean in mortgage? In
Yes.
mortgage?
Yes.
So we can do mortgages across Canada.
Okay.
So including Quebec. So if you are living in other province because we're currently in Saskatchewan, in Saskatoon, we can do mortgages across Canada. So anywhere. So you can talk to Tosin if you need mortgage referral, and then she can refer you to our team with regards to your mortgage inquiries and applications. So we can give you a better advice. So it doesn't mean that if you will gonna seek for our advice now, it doesn't mean that we will gonna force you to buy right away. No. It's about preparing. It's about preparation. Talking to a mortgage broker like us, talking to a mortgage professional, expert like that, is is getting you prepared for the big purchase of your lifetime in Canada. So we better prepare for it. So probably if we can see that, okay, we can able to proceed right away if you want. But if not, then we'll see. Okay, do this within 6 months or within a year, you will be prepared to buy your first property. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what we're gonna do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone that's been here today, to be patient enough for this webinar. We have this webinar once in a month. We try to conscientize our community and prepare ourselves for assets and wealth building. So this is something that I and my team commit to do at least once in a month. And I know one thing for sure for our community, one of the good assets building is having a home or having more homes that you can actually say, yes, you're building your wealth. But protecting it is another thing. So you do not leave it die, or should I pass away in debt to your family. So that's why we always want to let people understand that it's not just about having properties, but you also have to have a balance of how you can protect it and increase your net worth in Canada. So thank you, Abimbola. And thank you, Buiwa. Thank you, Edison. Thank you, Modely. I think that's Mama. And thank you, Home Purchase. Thank you, Golden Didi, for being part of the session today. Feel free to reach out to us. And like he said, it's not that they're going to pull your credit if you want to have a one-on-one session with him. I'll share this contact on the chat. For those who joined late today, you could also contact Francis, and this is also my contact if you want to reach out. And I think I would try to put this on YouTube so we can still have a recap on the session. I would have posted my handle on YouTube so you can watch this live at your own spare time, which is just my name. You can use my name to Google it on YouTube, and you find this on YouTube to follow up on what we had discussed today. So thank you all again for joining, and I wish everybody success in the next week that we're going to start with. So thank you all again, and thank you, Francis. We really appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Tosin. Thank you very much, everyone, for giving me the chance to do the presentation to you. And I hope you have learned something. And have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you, Tosin.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are going to be. Yeah,